Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is chapter 93 of Shattered Image, and this one is titled Life on the Line. The city lights below you were blurred and streaked beyond recognition as you were flown across town to the hospital that Sero had been taken to, and you sobbed as you were carried across there. It really wasn't like you to cry at all, so you knew that you were in a bad way to be sobbing like this. The thing that was weighing on your mind the most was that you had accidentally quirked Sero. He was the last person on earth you ever wanted to hurt, and it was tearing you apart that you had done the one thing that you had sworn to yourself that you would never do. As Hawks flew you, you suddenly blurted out what was making your heart ache so much. "Hawks!" you called to him. "Yeah?" he called back. "I did it. It was an accident," you sobbed. "I didn't mean to. I don't know what happened. It was mistimed, but I quirked him. He got hit with my quirk. My auntie also stabbed him, and he was bleeding out, and I never saw him come out of my quirk hold. Is he okay?" Hawks was quiet as he flew, and then after a time he looked down at you as he held you below himself. "Sero went in for emergency surgery. He's lost a lot of blood," Hawks said. "I don't know about the quirk side of things." Your gut twisted and more tears cascaded down your face. Once you got to the hospital, Hawks took you through the emergency department and you were directed to the waiting room of the emergency surgery department. The nurses there told you that you'd be waiting a while as Sero was in a bad way and he could be in surgery for hours. And he was. You waited and waited. Finally at 4 a.m, they told you that he had been moved from surgery to ICU, the intensive care unit. They told you strictly that he was not having any visitors and told you to go home, but you refused to move, stating that you weren't going anywhere until you had seen him and spoken to him. They had given each other a bit of a pensive look when you'd said this, but they hadn't said anything more. While waiting in the waiting room outside the ICU ward, you overheard other nurses whispering about how he was in a critical condition and how it might be a good idea for you to come in and see him one last time in case he didn't make it through the night. You buried your face into your arms and cried. The next day, 9 a.m, the nurses allowed you to come into the ICU ward, but you weren't allowed into his room. You looked at him through the room window, your heart breaking under the weight of your own fears of what you had done to him. You then sat down under his window and flat refused to move, falling asleep there finally at 10 a.m. and remaining under the room window, just propped up in the hall. "Hey," one nurse said as she started her shift around lunchtime that day. "What's going on with the girls asleep in the hall? Is no one moving her? She can't sleep there. Why isn't anyone doing anything? Should we call security?" The nurse who had done the night shift and continued on the next morning looked at her fellow night shift colleague and they gave each other a look before replying to the one who had just started that noon. It's a bit of a long story," the night shift nurse said. "We're letting her stay there. The guy in the room that she's sleeping outside of is her boyfriend. He was brought in from the emergency surgical ward. He's been placed in a medically induced coma. And to be honest, we didn't think he was going to make it last night, but he managed to pull through and he's finally stable now." "Geez," the new nurse said with a small cringe of apology. "He's young. What happened?" "Bad laceration to the neck, severed carotid artery and brain damage from a quirk," the other night shift nurse said. "What the heck? How did that happen?" the new nurse asked. "Unsure, but rumours say that the hero Hawks brought him in," the first night shift nurse said. "Wow," the newcomer said. "Something big must have happened. Has there been anything on the news?" "No, I don't think so," the second replied. "It's all a little hush-hush actually, but I hope he makes it because the girl outside the room is really stressed out about it." "I would be too if my boyfriend was in the same state," the newcomer said. "Has she been offered any food or water at least?" The two night shift nurses looked at each other with regret. We didn't even think of that," the first said apologetically. The newcomer gave her a mortified look. "Wait, no one has given her anything? What the heck, man? What is going on this ward? I swear to God, I'm going to go offer her something at least," she said before spinning on her heels and marching out the room. "May both your teas be cold for the rest of the day," she called as she left. "Oh man," the first sighed. "Great," the second replied. "Now we have her quirk wrath upon us. I hate cold tea." Out in the hall, you woke groggily to a nurse gently placing a packaged sandwich beside you, as well as a bottle of water, and you looked at her as she put it down on the floor. "Oh, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to wake you, but here's some food in case you're hungry. Oh, and water, and I have a blanket here for you." She held the blanket out, and you took it and pulled it over yourself and then scrunched down into it and looked into her eyes again. "I'll do my best to find out when you can go in and see him, okay?" she said kindly, gesturing to Sero's door. You nodded and looked down. "What sandwich is that?" You croaked. "Egg," she replied. "I hate hospital food," you whispered, and she heard you and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, it's all we've got," she said sadly. "Stupid 5-day-old sandwiches," you whispered, tears springing into your eyes as you remembered your time in hospital before with Sero. You then buried your head into your arms again and cried softly, while the poor nurse got up and tiptoed away. It felt like hours later before the doctor finally approached Sero's door and looked down at you. "You and Lynn, I presume?" he asked when he saw you there. "I have spoken with your teacher, Mr. Shoto Aizawa, also known as Hero Eraserhead. He informed me that you would most likely be here." You looked up at him and then stood up. "Let me into the room," you demanded strongly. "I need to go in." "Yes," the doctor said. "We would like a word with you." He then gestured to a man behind him who was also dressed in white, and you glanced him up and down and then nodded. The pair then unlocked Sero's door, and you were ushered in before they followed behind. Sero had tubes everywhere, some in his nose, mouth, IV lines in his arms. He looked a mess, and you teared up again as you saw him in that state. "Hunter," you croaked out as you approached the side of his bed. "Miss Lynn, Hunter Sero is in a medical coma," the doctor said. "We've been doing a lot of brain scans, and we don't have good news for you." "What do you mean?" you asked numbly from where you had rested one hand on his. "Brain scans have revealed that there is some significant damage done to his brain. He was hit quite heavily with a quirk, and it's hypothesized that he fell unconscious while still under the influence of this quirk, so its effects have lasted longer, since he was inadvertently under its spell for much longer. He also lost a lot of blood, thus concentrating the quirk factor in his bloodstream," the doctor said. Tears immediately streamed down your face. "But, having said that," the doctor said, "I have brought an assistant of mine to talk with you about a possible solution. But we need your approval, and we would need to talk to his parents too. But seeing as you are here, we will discuss this with you first." "What is it?" you demanded. "This is quirk-based, and my assistant has not tried this on anyone yet, but he possesses a quirk that can heal brain damage. But to do so, he has to take a memory from the person that he's quirking." "What?" you asked, your sleep-deprived brain not understanding. Oh, how interesting. Stay tuned for next week. We will find out what happens then, and I'll see you for more Heard You Like Me. I'll see you then.